If you've ever run a business or even just managed a team, you've probably stared at a spreadsheet just packed with numbers and thought, what on earth does any of this actually mean? Well, today we're going to decode that exact puzzle. We're talking about the crucial skill of financial interpretation.
We are absolutely obsessed with data, right? Data is the new oil. That's what they say. Everyone thinks it's the most valuable thing a company can possibly have. But I want to challenge that idea for a second. Let's kick things off with a simple question. What could possibly be more valuable than the data itself? And the answer? It's surprisingly simple, but it's also incredibly powerful. See, the real value isn't buried in the numbers themselves. It's in knowing what those numbers mean. That's the secret sauce. That's what separates just drowning in information from making truly smart, strategic moves.
So this brings us to a really important distinction we have to make. Data is simply not the same thing as insight. A spreadsheet that's just full of sales figures, on its own, it's really just a collection of numbers. It doesn't have any context, it doesn't tell a story, it's just noise.
Think about it like this. Imagine you are the captain of a gigantic ship, and you've got all the latest, greatest instruments, right? Compasses, speed logs, depth finders, all feeding you this constant stream of information. But if you don't know how to read them, if you can't interpret what they're telling you about the wind and the currents, then you are, for all intents and purposes, sailing completely blind. All the data in the world is right there, but it's totally useless. Okay, so how do we actually build that bridge? How do we get from those raw, confusing numbers to a winning strategy? Well, this is where the art of interpretation comes into play. It's the process that literally transforms data into a powerful tool for making smart decisions. The official name for this whole process is financial interpretation, and it's all about digging into those accounting reports, the balance sheets, the income statements, and pulling out conclusions that actually mean something. The whole point, the end goal, is to give leaders the clarity they need to make better, more informed decisions.
But what does this look like in the real world? How do you go from this idea to actually, doing something? It all starts with a specific set of tools that managers use to make those really high-stakes decisions.
To pull this off, managers really have a core toolkit. First up, you've got trend analysis. That's where you look at your own company's data over time to see things like, hey, are our sales actually growing consistently? Or are our costs slowly creeping up on us? Second is benchmarking. That's asking, how are we doing compared to our biggest competitor or maybe the industry average? And third, there's forecasting. This is where you use all that past data to make a really solid, educated guess about what the next quarter or even the next year might look like.
And this toolkit, this is what empowers the really big calls. When you analyze trends and benchmark your performance, leaders can confidently decide if it's the right time to expand into a new market. Forecasting helps them greenlight that huge, multi-million-dollar project. This isn't about guesswork at all. It's about making calculated choices so you can manage risk and adapt before you're forced to.
All right, theory's one thing, but let's see how this plays out with a company we all know. Let's take a look at Samsung and see how their mastery of financial interpretation helps them stay on top of the tech world.
This is a perfect illustration of how this whole process directly fuels one of the most critical parts of their business, innovation. So here's a quick look at how Samsung does it. They start with the raw data as their input, things like sales performance reports and cost structures. But the real magic happens in that middle column, interpretation. They ask these really sharp questions like, which of our products are giving us the best return? And where should we be focusing our innovation to win? And the answers to those questions, they guide their massive multi-billion-dollar R&D investments, which is what leads them to go all in on powerhouse divisions like semiconductors and mobile devices.
And this quote right here, it just sums it all up perfectly. For a company as huge as Samsung, or really for any company, this isn't some boring academic exercise. This process, this sound interpretation, is what guarantees their financial stability and ultimately their ability to compete and win for years to come.
So, as we wrap things up here, I want to leave you with this one question to chew on. Whether it's for your business, your department, or hey, even just your personal finances, your numbers have a story. They're trying to tell you something. The real question is, are you listening?